what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Share Guys Tier List. Drop bombs, drop bombs, drop bombs. We got a lot of bombs dropping for you guys.
I'm wearing my Death Grip shirt. It's got a hole in it.
I'm wearing my Memories of Murder t-shirt.
We do not care.
I think, honestly, this is going to be our hardest tier list. Ex-military, let's go. We're hopping in. Coming straight out of the gates on fire. Seriously, ex-military is one of their best. This is A tier.
I agree. I know, I fully agree.
It's one of the most. It's one of the most stacked.
Listen, bro. The thing about Death Grips, and I mean, you said this about Bjork, and it was kind of true for me too, that they're all great, even though there's one of them that wasn't to me in the Bjork one. But this time, they're really they're all great. Like, this is one of my favorite discographies ever. And every album has so much to offer, so much quality. I mean, we still have we still got like a masterpiece on our hands. Like, really.
For A tier, if it's an A tier Death Grips project, that means it's master tier. That's a masterpiece.
That's crazy.
Even after their entire discography run, we still have classics like Beware, Guillotine, Tachyon, freaking Spread Eagle, Across the Block. Like, I'm just running through it, right? Those are some of the
one of my favorites. Underrated, Through the Walls. Oh my god, that song goes crazy.
I'm gonna have to go. I Want It, I Need It. That one is.
That's crazy. A great one too, man. That's a great one.
I Want It, I Need It.
Yeah, I love the raw energy, like the mixtape energy. The more use of samples, because that is probably the most unique thing about this compared to the rest of their albums, is that you actually get like sample flips and shit. Like, it's more hip hop than most of their stuff.
I think, honestly, for anyone just trying to get into like an abrasive side of hip hop, like hardcore hip hop, industrial hip hop, this is the album to start with, because it gives you a highlight, and it's definitely
an essential. It's an essential like experimental hip hop album. I think, there's a scale of like the Death Grips albums and like which one is less hip hop and like least hip hop and most hip hop. This is the most hip hop.
We're going A tier on ex-military. We love it. They came out of the gates.
Love it, man.
Banging. Next album, The Money Store.
Man, this was one of my favorite albums of all time for so long.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. It's one of those things that got you into experimental music, and like you hear about Death Grips from Fantano, and it's like, what is this? And then it's like your mind is blown and it expands. This is an all-timer for me, but if I'm being honest, it's been dethroned over the years. Like as I've matured as a music listener and a Death Grips fan, maybe I overplayed it a little bit. Maybe it's just not as good as a few of their other albums, but I'm gonna say A tier, man. Like, that's still, it's kind of hard for me to not say S, but I'm gonna say A tier for The Money Store.
I'm gonna agree with you. I think it is A tier, because here's the thing, right? It is what people know Death Grips for, right? This is that album, right? Fantano put everyone on, which I'm actually gonna hold off my story as to how I got into the Death Grips for the next album, because I actually didn't get into Death Grips by Fantano. It's actually kind of crazy.
We do not care.
This one is just crazy stacked as well.
It's just
and we have some of the craziest production. The rapping on every song is insane. The album is only like 40 minutes, right? But it took me at least a good hour and 30 minutes to like actually sit there, read through the lyrics, and try and like figure out what's trying to be said here. Because honestly, I think this is where Ride is flexing some of his best like lyrical muscles. I'm not gonna lie.
I have a very clear idea of what my favorite lyrics are from him. This is probably like second or third. They're like it's just his most memorable stuff. Like, it's just his most memorable, iconic, quotable.
And it's some of the most memorable beats as well, like production. Of course, you think of like I've Seen Footage, Get God. Personally, my favorite song on here is Double Helix. It always has been.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah. I can't pick a favorite.
I love the bass.
On this album.
Yeah, no, it is so hard. We're not even gonna try to like attempt on some of these, because I agree with Vaughn.
I still hold it in extremely high regard. I don't go back to it as much as a couple other Death Grips albums now. So that's just where it is. I mean, like I said, it kind of pains me not to put it in S, because I do have such a like this album's just like imprinted in my brain at this point. Like, I've listened to it like dozens of times, but it's just not quite there It's just not quite
Yeah.
there.
But now here's the question: are we gonna put it over ex-military? Because
Yes.
personally, I would say yes. Yes, I would agree.
Let's do it, bro. A tier as well.
Because like the only thing that the Money Store has over ex-military is that while both are very consistent, I say the Money Store is a little bit tighter. It's a little bit more consistent.
It is definitely.
compared to
I think it's
ex-military.
much more consistent, honestly. I mean, it's hard. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not much more, because like we said, A tier Death Grips is still like S tier anyone else.
No Love Deep Web.
No Love Deep Web.
This is how I actually got into Death Grips. This album. My friend told me to listen to this, and he played me Hunger Games, and I was like, "What is this?" And then I kind of like left it alone because I wasn't really ready to get into this kind of music. And then I saw like a video again of like a dog on a swing listening to Hunger Games. And then it like sealed the deal. It just like clicked when I saw that video. And so then this was the first album I listened to. But to actually talk about No Love Deep Web, to actually talk about it, I'm putting it B tier. I'm putting it B tier just simply because it's great. There's so many great dogs on here. Like World of Dogs is like I think like considered like the angriest Death Grip song or something like that. There's great tracks up on here like Come Up and Get Me. No Dice is just so good. And their production on here is a lot, almost I'd say weirder. I'd say it's a bit weirder on here, but it's still very cool, very refreshing, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
I don't think the production is weirder on here. If anything, it's their most straightforward production. It's their most minimal production.
Really?
Yeah. And that is...
But I feel like for them that's weird though, because they're always going over the top.
It's weird for them because it's not weird. This is one of my favorites. It always has been. I mean, the Money Store is close, right? But to me, this is their catchiest album. This is their most immediate, most banging, bro. Like, every beat on here, it's something about the minimal production that unlocks just like a more visceral experience, like with their music, like where I can just really get into it. And I can really hear like the anger in Ride's voice. Like, so much of their other music is so loud and maximalist, and this is like the most like low key as far as a production, but it's still slap. And I just love all the sounds going on here. Like, you can really like, because the beats are so minimal, you can hear everything, and it's just like so good, and just the beats slap so much. I'm putting it S tier, man. Like, this is S tier for me. I just can't get enough of it.
We're gonna have to compromise on an A. We're gonna have to compromise on an A.
This is the Death Grips album I return to the most. So,
that's crazy. That's super crazy, and that's not very common. That's not a common take. I will say, man. Lock Your Doors has always like been like top 5 Death Grip songs for me.
Lock Your Doors is fucking insane. The atmosphere in that song, that it's just like insane. And I just love every song.
Let me ask, would you say this is your favorite Death Grips album?
No.
Okay, it's not your favorite, but you would place it S tier.
Yeah.
Look, if I'm placing a B tier and you're placing it S tier, I can compromise on an A tier and we can put it above ex-military.
Whatever, bro. Whatever, bro.
Next album, Government Plates.
Government Plates.
How are we feeling about this one? How are we feeling about Government Plates?
I feel like Government Plates is underrated because a lot of people see it as their worst album. I don't think it's their worst album. I love it through and through. I think it's maybe their weirdest album, and that's saying a lot. It is very weird, and Ride is not very present on like the second half of the album. It's like, it's kind of like very production based, but I think it's a really unique experience. I think it's really cool, and there are definitely some career highlights on this album. I love This Is Violence Now. That's my favorite song.
Yes, Birds, that's my favorite as well.
Birds is an all-timer as well. It's very unique with Robert Pattinson on the guitar. The opener, the Pillbox Hat, that's a classic. It would be A tier for a lot of artists, but for them, it's going in my B tier.
You know, I'm gonna agree with you because actually I do think this album is underrated. Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah. It's great. It's always just a fun listen. And the thing is, too, it's short. It's one of their shorter albums.
Yeah.
It's 35 minutes. And in general, Death Grips albums aren't really that long anyways.
Yeah, they're really usually pretty short.
That 40-minute, 45
even this one is a little shorter than usual.
Another great highlight on here, personally for me, I really love I'm Overflow.
Mm-hmm.
Overflow is crazy. But yeah, it doesn't really stand up to what we have currently standing in our top
Yeah,
tier right now.
it's definitely
So
not A tier. It can't.
and
It's not standing with these.
and the thing is, to say it's the worst Death Grips album, the worst Death Grips album is still better than like most artists' discography.
That's what I'm
Like
saying, man. Yeah, and but I don't even think
like
this is their worst though, for the record. But like,
really,
no, that's what I was
I'm
trying to
really
say.
curious to see what you think is their worst. Let's put it down. B tier stamp of approval. Stamp. Next album, People on the Moon. I can't say that one. I can't say
Redacted.
it. Every time I say it, there's a censor bar. People on the Moon.
Wait, so you do say it? We're splitting up the powers that be because I have a very clear preference here. These two are definitely in different tiers. And I can say Disc 1 on the Moon is easily my favorite Death Grips album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's a perfect album. This is like, if this is an S tier, I might have to cry. It's just insane, dude. Like the way that the tracks flow into each other, and just the sounds that are being experimented with here, and mixing Bjork's voice into everything and like chopping it up, and like it's just such an otherworldly, insane experience. It flows on through the 30 minutes, and it just doesn't stop pummeling you with fucking energy and just crazy shit going on. I also think this is the best lyrically because from what I can tell, there's actually some kind of like social commentary. I mean, with the album title alone, that's already invoking more social commentary than any other Death Grips album.
I disagree. I disagree. I disagree.
You disagree? With what?
You really got look. The thing is, that's the thing about Death Grips. You really have to go under the scalpel of their work to really truly understand what they're talking about. He's talking about a lot of stuff on the Money Store.
This is more political, bro. I don't think there's any way to getting around.
No. You're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. You're not wrong.
I think like
But
it's fair. It's fair if you prefer the lyrics in the Money Store, but I feel like this is the most clearly like about something. This is still cryptic, obviously, but like you can kind of like Say Hey Kid is like not like that's pretty in the scope of Death Grips. I think that's pretty clearly talking about something.
Yeah.
Even the content of the lyrics aside, I still think it's some of his most memorable and like catchiest lyrics as well. The thing I love most with all Death Grips is just the production, and I feel like this is just the most off the wall like insane production that they've ever had.
I mean, from the moment we start off, right? Like every time I hear an open window is on, like whatever, you know, like I kind of like lose it.
Doors
like,
and windows on. Yeah.
I fuck it up every time, but like literally every time I hear it, I like get like chills for a second because it's like it's so exciting. Every time I hear tisk 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 my terracotta army, I fucking lose
like,
it.
That's insane.
That is one of my favorite deliveries of his.
Like, and that's
so
just
good.
an insane lyric too. Like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, like the terracotta army, because then like you search it up, you're like, holy shit, this is like this like underground Chinese temple. Like that's the thing about Death Grips, right? Like, look, I hear this argument a lot online that MC Ride is not a great rapper, or like he's not, like that's such a dumb, because he says nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you kidding me? He is easily one of the best rappers.
Obviously, his style is not for most people, not for most hip hop fans.
No, of course, and I get that.
But like, if you respect Aesop Rock, if you respect even MF Doom, you gotta respect MC Ride, because there's so much. There's layers to what he's saying. It's not just nonsense, and his flow is impeccable. It's always on point. Like it's not like he's offbeat. Like he's good at rapping. He's just yelling, and it's just in your face, and maybe you don't like it, but like I feel like you have to respect the talent there.
I can't even wrap my head around how he finds those pockets sometimes to rap in, like where he finds
That's another great point. Like, who else could rap on these beats? Like, there's a very elite kind of like level of rappers that could actually attempt to rap on a Death Grips beat.
I wouldn't even say most of my favorite rappers ever could rap on these kinds of beats. No, it's just so fantastic, and you're so right. Like, I don't want to say that Ride gets like the best part of Death Grips album is their production, because that's just sometimes not true. But I will say on this album, it's super catchy. I'm not gonna lie. I actually get
my
stuck
favorite
in the hooks a lot.
I know that's the best Death Grips albums also have amazing hooks, and that's something that's really special about them, and the reason that so many people come to them as their first like foray into experimental music is because they actually have like hooks and songwriting that you can like cling onto and
Yeah,
get stuck in your head. And
yeah.
this is definitely not an exception. Like there's a lot of crazy like really catchy hooks on here.
I will agree on you. People on the Moon, it's S tier. It's S tier,
Let's go.
right? Like, I get it. This is kind of the contrarian take when it comes to these two albums. Everyone says Jenny Death is better, but
It's not.
I
It's
can't
not,
agree with
bro.
that either. I can't agree with that either.
It's not, bro.
But moving on, we might as well get into it. Jenny Death, it's great. It's still great.
Yeah, it's
Still
great. Like I said, all of these are great, man. I love all of these.
I
And
would put it.
obviously, you can't listen. You can't mention Jenny Death without mentioning On GP. I mean, it's
Yeah,
clearly one of their best songs. Like you can't,
yeah,
like, I don't know if anyone disagrees that it's like an amazing song. And I think the whole album is amazing as well. The opener is crazy. I also love
yeah.
the increased usage of guitar and like rock elements into it. I think it's a very unique album in their discography. It brings a very cool, different kind of sound to it, but it also has a lot of their classic kind of stuff in there. Like Turned
Yeah.
Off is just like kind of like a classic like money store type song. It's a good variety of stuff on here. It's very consistent, but also I think the variety is where maybe it doesn't reach the levels of On the Moon and like some of my other favorites because it really
Hmm.
feels like in song quality it's consistent, but it is kind of inconsistent as far as like a through line of like the sound just past the regular Death Grip sound. It's just not as fulfilling of an experience as On the Moon and like even Ex-Military, which flows into itself.
No, and I agree because personally, you see, for me, I when I first found Death Grips, I actually, like I said, I didn't know that there was a difference between On the Moon and Jenny Death.
Yeah,
Like
well,
that just
same.
wasn't given to me. It was always the powers that be. So when I would listen to it, it was always like, okay, wow, On the Moon, crazy. Like disc one, crazy. And then we get to Jenny Death. And it's like, while it's a great listen, it's such a fun listen. I'm really just living for On GP, right? Like when On GP comes on,
Yeah,
it's time.
yeah.
I'm turning up my headset. Like I'm about to go crazy. It's not something I don't return to Jenny Death that much by itself. If I'm returning to Jenny Death, it's because On the Moon just finished playing,
Yeah,
and now
that's
it's time for part two. It's time
yeah,
for win two, right?
yeah.
Like let's get that second win going, and then we end off on GP and Death Grips 2.0, and it's
I
fantastic.
feel the same. Every time I listen to that album, I'm just blown away by disc 1 and
Yeah.
then disc 2 comes on and like you said, I mean you're listening to these two albums combined is like an hour and 20 minutes and then by the time you're nearing the end like nearing the deep cuts of Jenny Death like you're waiting for On GP. And I just don't feel that same type of feeling like when I'm listening to my favorite Death Grips albums. I think this is B tier, like solidly.
I think it's B tier, but it's definitely above Government Plates. I mean, come on now. I feel like you know
Honestly, no,
really.
I'll put it above, but I don't, it's not clear cut for me.
Next album, Bottomless Pit. When Bottomless Pit dropped, I was like, what the fuck, right? Like, cause it's like they managed to reinvent themselves, but like in their own box. It's like they're like creating a damn other new, like I don't know.
It's
That's it's so hard
Bottomless
to wrap
Pit.
my head around how they do it.
Bottomless Pit to me feels like kind of an amalgamation of everything they've made before, and just
Yeah,
like put into some kind of machine that just makes it like that just like I don't know. It feels like their most accessible album. I will say like it's still not. I mean, it still starts with the two craziest songs on the album, which is Giving Bad People Good
yeah, Giving
Ideas
Bad People
and
and Hothead.
Hothead,
You're right. You're right.
which are just insane. And those are two of my favorites on the album too. And Spikes.
Yeah,
I mean, goddamn, that is
Spikes,
that's one
Spikes,
of their
Spikes.
best 3-track runs. Just starting off the album, it's amazing. But this is
Yeah,
not one of my favorite Death Grips albums. I feel like this album and this production is a little more minimal. It's a little more straightforward with songwriting. And when I start to think about it, and when I start to describe it, I feel like this album, for a lot of people, is what No Love Deep Web is for me. Like it's just straightforward. It cuts to the chase, and it just gets to the root of like what I love about them. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like No Love Deep Web just does that a little bit better. I mean,
Yeah.
they're reinventing themselves, but it also feels very familiar. And I guess
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
it just doesn't stand out as much as the A's and S's.
That's fine. I would say it's A tier, like low A tier, but if you want to put it over Jenny Death, I'm okay with that. I love so many of these tracks on here that I would want to put it A tier, but I say if you want to put it B tier, I will
Yeah,
agree. And then you
I'm
gotta put it
gonna
above Jenny Death. You gotta put it above Jenny Death.
I'll put it high B tier. Another thing about this album is that once I get
Yeah.
into the second half of the album, it's getting a little forgettable. Like in the grand scheme of Death Grips, like I'm not. I never think about even 80808. Like it's a great
That's
song, but I
crazy.
never think about it. I would never put it with among my favorite Death Grips tracks.
I don't know. I think about Three Bedrooms in a Good Neighborhood a lot. When 80808 finally goes into that like little section that it's I love that part so much. Like
Yeah,
it's so fun to listen to. Maybe I'm not thinking about a lot of the tracks as much, but every time I'm listening to it, it's just exhilarating and I'm having so much fun with it.
I get it.
So it's kind of
It's
like
a
the
fun
same
album.
it's kind of like Jenny Death, right? It's like when you're listening to it in the moment, it's so good, so much fun. Young Thug, so much fun. Next album, actually, not an album, an EP. It's steroids. Look, I'm gonna say it. This is high A. This is high A. Maybe not above. Maybe
What?
not above the Money Store. Maybe not above the Money Store. But it's up there. It's insane. It's just so damn good. It's such a fun listen.
Listen, man, this is gonna be my one that
Your hot take?
I'm not as hot about. Again, this would be like B tier, maybe A tier for most artists, but like it's like C tier for Death Grips because I none of these tracks are memorable. I mean, it's technically one track, but part of my problem with it is that it doesn't feel like one track. Like On the Moon feels like one track, but this doesn't. It doesn't even flow as well as that. So I just don't get the point of it being like a mega mix, and I don't return to it like ever. It's just not. There's just not much material here that I really connect with as much as their other stuff. Like, it's a very fun listen. It's a very good production. It's good rapping. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but like, I mean, compared to these albums on the screen right now, like that, like it's just not even close for me.
That's crazy because this is the Death Grips project that I turn on when I'm gonna go work out or something or just go crazy to. They go so damn hard.
Part of it is that they go too crazy because I like on most of their
Really?
stuff like there's like a groove that I can catch on to. There's like a beat, and then some of this stuff on the Gabber Mega Mix, bro. Like it's just like two gabbers, too like crazy. Like I can't catch on to it. Like it's just going right past me. Like the energy is just like
That's what I love
flowing
about
in
it.
my
It's that
face.
like
So yeah, I get it.
it's
I
that,
get
that
it. It's just not. It's not what I want from Death Grip.
for me when I listen to Death Grips and it's not all that consistent, but when it comes to this project, like I love how much I'm just being fucking barraged with everything coming at me.
Yeah.
Like I can't even defend myself because the album is just I can't control it, right? Like when you I feel like when you listen to like really abrasive music, sometimes you can like hold on to the reins and kind of control it a little bit. But with this, I get overwhelmed and I love it. Like I love that feeling. It's so fucking good.
I don't
You
know.
can put it above Government Plates, but it's not touching that C tier.
I could put it above Government Plates and then have Jenny Death above it still, but like I feel like Government Plates doesn't deserve to be left out. So I'm gonna say Jenny Death is gonna have to take one for the team, and I'll
Damn.
just put it right here for you. Because I mean, you said high
Okay.
A. I think that's fair enough. I think it's only fair.
But look,
Next is
you're the snitch. I'll get my thoughts out the way because Vaughn already knows, and if you guys know me personally, you know that this is my favorite Death Grips album. But I truly think this is like hey, you want to get into Death Grips? Here you go. There's tracks where we got a lot of rapping. We're getting tracks where it's like not rapping at all, like Black Paint. We're getting that really abrasive sound like on Shit Show. we'll get the random like kind of just like instrumental tracks. There's so many beats on here that I remember and I just come back to, and it's such a consistent listen to me. Like from the moment Death Grips is Online comes, it feels like 10 minutes and I'm already on Disappointed. It's just crazy. Like I lose train like all my train of thought whenever I listen to it and I throw it on. It's so fun.
I'll be honest. I'll be brutally honest. It's one of my least favorites. But as we've established,
That's tough.
that doesn't mean that much. Honestly,
Yeah.
I definitely like it more than Steroids. Like I wouldn't put it C tier. I'm thinking more B tier. I love it. It's very creative. It's very out there. I would actually say it's the most out there that they've gone. So that's why I struggle with you saying it's the most accessible, because I feel like maybe it could be, but like I feel like it's not a good reflection of
Well,
Death Grips.
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I didn't say it's their most accessible. I'm saying it's the one that highlights their palette the most. Like you
That's
get a
what
little
I'm-
bit of
yeah,
everything.
That's
It's
what
a,
I'm
it's a
disagreeing
taste
with the
picker
most.
album.
That's what I'm
Really?
disagreeing with the most, because there's songs on here that have never been even close to replicated on any other albums, like Black Paint and Linda's in Custody. Like those are just so out there that it's like it's not a good reflection of Death Grips as a whole.
I get that. And maybe it's just because by the time I got to Year of the Snitch, I had already been like a bunch of Death Grips albums in, like everything of the sorts. But I don't know, man. I look upon this album so fondly.
Something that should be said about this album is that you have a track like Death Grips is Online, which is very classic Death Grips.
Yeah.
But then right after is Flies, and then right after
Flies.
that is
So the
Black
opportunities.
Paint, and you just go like further and further off the trail, and it's like that. It's really cool, and it's really fun to listen to because it's so all over the place. But it also is not as cohesive as some of their best stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me, right? Like when it comes to Death Grips, like look, it's great to have cohesiveness and stuff like that. But like it's Death Grips, right? Like we're gonna be getting different sounds,
I'm
hopping,
I
to and
feel
from,
that-
bouncing off the walls.
That's why
like,
that's why I love everything they do.
yeah.
And that's why this is still like personally in my B tier, even which would be A tier for most other artists. But it's still not one of my favorites. So like
That's fair.
Well, here's the deal: it's not going S tier, because you
know.
sniped my S tier in No Love Deep
You gotta
Web.
snipe mine. I get it.
I mean, that's just how it goes, and I don't know. I'll have to. I'll be nice and I'll put it above No Love.
Wow. Okay. There
But
you
like,
go.
yeah, like
'Cause-
okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Because those are the two albums we ride for, right? Like
So,
No
yeah,
Love
like-
and Year of the Snitch. That's the tier list for you. As you can see, we did it for you guys.
Tell us who you want to see ranked in a tier list. Tell us what other types of videos you want to see. Tell us what other types of tier lists. I don't even know, man. Just tell us like anything that's on your mind.
We want to give a big shout out to Todd Edwards.
Edwards. Shout out Todd Edwards. Okay.
Thank you so much.
That's
We
it.
appreciate you, Todd Edwards. It would seem Vaughn just ended the video. Or did he?
Well, I didn't stop recording, so if there's really something that's pressing on your mind, like